Before you create a lesson, it's important to understand what a lesson is in Tonic Tutor and how it works. Basically, a lesson is the set of games that a student is required to play each week. The lesson controls how many times each game should be played. Once the student has played the assigned games as many times as is required, the lesson is finished for that week. At that point, the student can access all the games to play just for fun until the next week begins. This feature will be discussed in more detail later in this tutorial. Like most teachers, I don't have time to assign a new lesson to every student every week. But that's okay, because once I assign a lesson to a student, that lesson will keep resetting itself and repeating every week unless I make changes to it. In the Adding a Student tutorial, I set a lesson time for Adam. That lesson time is important. Since I set Adam's time to Friday, the lesson I assigned him will be reset every Friday morning. If you don't set a lesson time, don't worry. That time will always default to Monday, and you can easily change any student's lesson time from the student index. It's important to understand the concept of preset lessons. These lessons, from pre-grade to grade 10, were made by the creators of Tonic Tutor to correspond approximately with conservatory exam levels. Anytime I assign a new lesson, it will always start from a preset. I can't change the presets themselves. Instead, a preset acts as a template for a new lesson. When I assigned Adam the grade 4 lesson, a brand new lesson called Adam was added to the lesson drop-down menu. Right now, the lesson called Adam is an exact copy of the grade 4 lesson. For people who like to keep it simple, good news. This is all you have to do to assign a lesson. But what if I want to tailor Adam's lesson to his specific needs? In that case, I can edit the Adam lesson so that it's no longer the same as the grade 4 preset. The Adam lesson is also now available as the template for another lesson. So if I have another student who needs a lesson that's similar to Adam's, I can choose the Adam lesson from the lesson drop-down as a template for the new student's lesson, without changing Adam's original lesson. To get a better understanding of how lessons work in Tonic Tutor, we'll take a look at what Adam is going to see when he logs in, and how the lessons that we assigned him will work. The first thing Adam will see is a list of the games he needs to play this week. In other words, he'll see his weekly lesson. You'll notice that only a few games are here, and the others are nowhere to be seen. That's because I, as the teacher, can control which games Adam sees and which he doesn't. We'll see how to do that later in the other lesson tutorial. You'll also notice that there are numbers in the game boxes. These numbers indicate how many times Adam needs to play each game in order to complete his weekly lesson. Every time Adam plays a game, the number in the box changes to reflect his progress. Once he has played a game as many times as required, that game will no longer show up in the list. Once Adam's lesson is completed, he will have access to all of the games in Tonic Tutor. While his weekly lesson is important, we'd like to make sure that if he wants to, he can play more games after his lesson is finished. It's important to note that these versions of the games are not part of Adam's lesson and do not use the game settings from the lesson that I assigned. Instead, there are 4 levels to choose from: beginner, elementary, intermediate, and advanced. These versions of the games also have lots of different achievements that reward students for continuing to play after their lesson is finished and motivate them to keep playing. Adam can access these versions of the games until his lesson resets early on Friday morning. Once that happens, I'll be able to look up his game scores in his weekly stats graphs, and his lesson will automatically start again, with the same settings unless I change them.